This is Amateur Logic, episode 182, for June 16th, 2023. Amateur Logic is brought to you by ICOM. Keep your competitive contesting edge and be a field day leader with ICOM. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Amateur Logic. I'm George.
I'm Tommy.
I'm Neil.
I'm Mike. Slacker of the month. Whoops, wrong way.
And it's great to be back for another episode. Tonight, we're all excited and in a tizzy about field day.
There it is.
That's right. Every time you hear that sound, that's worth 5 points.
That's the field day alert.
Okay. So, yeah, don't say the F word. Wow. What's been going on, Tommy?
I've been getting ready for field day.
Oh, okay.
Getting got a new piece of gear, checking out, and getting set up, and I'm ready to go, man. I'm looking forward to it.
You know, I've been getting ready myself to take a lot of antennas and stuff and other gear that I usually pack up every time about this time of the year, and I take it out in the field for 2 days.
Oh, actually, it's both, isn't it?
Yeah. Does that qualify? No.
They're separate.
He's trying to cheat the system, Emil.
He is. He did that skillfully.
Yeah. Emil, what's been going on down there?
Well, in between the thunderstorms and lightning strikes, we're also getting ready for a certain day and just staying or trying to stay cool. I think that's going to be a big part of our day this year is to try to remain hydrated and cool, man.
Yeah.
If you're outside, that's going to be a task.
We need to send him that PDF Wayne did on the Visqueen air-conditioned tent.
There you go.
Yeah.
We should put that in the show notes for people to download.
Yeah. I think we've got video. Mike, what's been happening up there?
Actually, yes, everyone else is blaming Canada for the wildfires and the smoke. But there's something really odd I've noticed. The skies have been kind of overcast as a result of the smoke in the sky, but it's dropped the temperature. So daily highs have only been like high 60s to mid 70s. So perfect weather, and it's been cooling down at night. I could deal with a whole summer worth of this weather.
Yeah.
It could do without the smoke, though, but I assume that's responsible for that.
Okay.
Blocking out the sun.
I went to Indiana this week for work Monday through Wednesday, and it was cool up there. I didn't even think to take a jacket, but when I got there, it was like in the upper 50s.
Yeah.
It was pretty chilly.
So, Mike, you think that weather is going to help you next weekend for an event that you might participate in?
I have no idea. I've been to field day. Go ahead, Emil.
That was for you, Emil.
Where I've needed a jacket, and I've also been to FD, where air conditioning would have been appreciated. So,
I've never had a field day when I had to have a jacket, ever.
No.
Not even winter field day.
Well, You could use them to beat the
You missed
You missed
one.
Tommy's.
I
You
know.
missed Tommy's.
I was going to wait. Yeah, you sure did.
Yeah.
I'm the slacker of the month, not you.
Well, it's I'm looking forward to a good event. We are going to have air conditioning. We're doing it from a different location this time around. It should be a little easier once we get the antennas set up.
Of course, that's always the hard part.
That is a hard part. But boy, here we've had bad weather all week. You've been gone, so you've missed it all. But
I've missed some of it, but I had bad weather before I left and when I got home.
well, we had some in between there too.
Oh, y'all are lucky.
Yep. At least we won't be having it next weekend.
The chat room's in trouble. They're taking
Yep.
it as a drinking contest.
Yeah.
Every time they take a drink when they hear,
Every time they hear Phil Day,
they're not going to make it.
he missed
Like
one.
that episode of WKRP where the state trooper is doing the test, and every time Johnny Fever had to take a drink, and his reaction time got faster as things went on. So anyway, you had to see it.
Yeah. Well, we've had numerous power failures across the state here for the last few days. And wow, I got 3 transmitter sites right now that are operating on emergency generators because they're that backed up on getting the lines repaired. Our buddy Jeff, W5PPB, sent me a photo earlier today. He was going out to one transmitter site that I've got a transmitter at as well. There was a tree in the road. He sent me a picture of the tree, but he also sent me a picture of the about 10 light poles laid over in the road in a row
Really?
on the way out there.
From this morning?
From this morning.
Wow.
Yeah.
It got pretty bad last Saturday. There are trees all down in my town. I mean huge trees.
Yeah.
Have you been up there?
No.
Like, they're enormous. They've been there for 100 years or more.
Yeah.
They're just laying over on the side. I had to go out Sunday, miss church, and went and cut neighbors' limbs and stuff up and stacked it up. I was glad to go out of town. So I could get
Your
some
neighbor's
rest.
limbs or the tree?
Yeah. Depends on which one you're talking
Yeah.
about. Which neighbor. So,
I felt it necessary to qualify that.
That's
yeah,
a good point,
I
Mike.
should have clarified.
So we always have an email or a post or a news item or a topic to talk about each month.
Google decided to sunset their domain business and I guess sold it off to Squarespace. So that means
Wow.
anybody that has a domain that is hosted by Google, they're being sold to Squarespace. And that basically amounts to about 10 million domains.
Wow. Emil, what is the title of your segment this month?
Oh, no, you don't. Oh, no, you don't, George. So I have, we take a certain day, Glenn and I, especially Glenn and I.
Oh, you're
a certain
trying to
day,
avoid it yourself now.
very seriously, whether it's winter or summer. So here we go with ARRL's special day coming up. And I decided, since we've been doing this for quite some time, to put together a lot of the tricks, the cheap tricks that I have, say, acquired over the years to make things work on our antenna side, and figured I'd share that with you guys.
Well, hello, George, Tommy, Mike, and AmateurLogic.TV viewers. I got some tips for field day on the antenna side that'll surely save you some time in setup and function. One is this MFJ 1919EX, the time saver being right there. Those quick clips are certain to get you up in the air, especially on the VHF, UHF side, which is what I use it for, with this snazzy antenna here, which is actually just on a piece of PVC with that little hose clamp there. Always good to have that in the air. The other is my Wolf River coil that I picked up from a couple of years ago at Hamvention. I decided this year to get me a ground rod and mount it on the top of this ground rod here for use or quick setup. And finally, a set of radials. I actually have 8 radials. This is just one set of them in which I can clip on easily to the ground portion of this antenna system and get them out there on the ground in the field. So let's take a look at them. So the first one I'll start with here is the tripod from MFJ. I think it's their 1919 EX, and we'll get that set up. Got the tripod expanded there, and what we're going to do is use some of the clips or clip things here, and we're basically going to sacrifice this first piece right here and use it for holding the PVC in that antenna. In this case, as you can see here, I have the antenna set up on this little piece of PVC, which I match to the length of this section, and I'll go ahead and put it over while it's still down, and literally it's going to sit right on top of that piece, and then I'll extend it. And we'll go ahead and take the second piece up, undo the flap, and it is worth noting that we have drawn some lines on the antenna, or I'm sorry, the fiberglass mask that tells us basically not to extend it too far outside of this. And these quick clamps are so easy and do a great job. I've only had to adjust them once maybe since I got this. They hold their position, and they do a really fine job of doing that. So we do that to the rest of them. And the end result is the antenna, probably at around 20-25 feet, and very sturdy. I've never had to guide that one in all the field days that I've had, and it's been pretty windy. Winter field day and regular field day, I've always used that, and it just works. So quick clamps are worth it to me. Here I'm going to go ahead and start this into the ground using my ultimate tool, and I usually drive it around 2 feet maybe, or 1.5 feet into the ground, just so it's halfway decent, holding itself or stable. It'll support that Wolf River coil, which is very light, into the ground. And we'll go ahead and screw the coil into the mount, which is a standard mirror type mount, by the way, for CB antennas usually, if I'm not mistaken. With the stud mount, we got it on there. And we'll put the steel whip in. I'm pretty sure this is the infamous one that I got at Hamvention and almost speared a couple of people on the bus going to my truck with. But I made it. And if you look at the whole thing there, it's not quite far enough into the ground. I'll remedy that. But there's the antenna. And the coil, of course, you adjust. But the real reason for me showing you the video is this. So at the local auto parts store, I went ahead and picked up alligator clips you find in a battery section and soldered some of the radials into this clip here, so that when it comes time to setting up the radials, I could simply clip them to the ground side and then spread them out as I need. I have several different lengths, and about 8 total, and that I'll spread out into a star pattern basically. And for the wires and the trees, I always use this is the original one that I built way back when I first started with the AmateurLogic.TV guys, and it's still going strong. That pump, the valve there has never stopped working, and it still takes around 60 to 70 psi, and literally puts that up there in the trees without any problems. You can see here actually at my QTH, this is one of them. If we follow this ladder line, we'll find it going all the way up into the trees. See one of the one of the wires there going in into the center conductor up here, and they take off in basically an inverted L, and some trees in the front yard and all the way over to the other side of the shack. That is a good 70 feet up there, which always does good on HF. Basically, that's held up there by some Dacron rope that goes up through the trees and keeps it up there. Can barely see it, which is an awesome thing, but that's been out here for years. So it holds up. That Dacron, even the smaller type of rope, is really worth using and getting because it just lasts. And here in Louisiana, unless you're fishing in the trees with your antennas with something other than the Cajun line, the fishing line, you're just not going to catch any QSO fish. So definitely, if you want to get that QSL, definitely get the QSO fish Cajun line. And finally, I use MFJ's 300 watt wire tuner here, which has all the right stuffs as far as whether you're just using a wire, grounding it out there, or feeding it with coax and power, which you can also feed from the you can actually feed it from the radio or the bias T. That one is in my Go kit, which I'll show you. And for those who might not have seen but heard of the Go box here, inside of this box is the bias T that I mounted next to the Epic power gate here that switches power, but it also feeds 12 volts through the coax to that tuner. You can turn it on and off there. You see the switch to the right of that box, but you can turn that on or off depending on what kind of an antenna arrangement you're using and whether or not it's sending 12 volts down the wire or not. And the auto tuner on the other end, of course, strips it out and uses it so that you can auto tune the antenna. Talk about saving some time versus something like a like the coil. So if you have a wire, non-resonant wire that's not there, you know, so there's my jacks that are coming out VHF in, HF, VHF, UHF on the left there and HF on the right. And so depending on the antenna configuration you'll have, you'll be able to make it work. One of the things I also learned over the years is to always have one of these tri-magnetic mag mounts, and I stick it in the bed of my truck just in case I want to do something on a band that none of my wires or coil is quite working right. I always break out the ham stick and couple it with this in the bed of the truck, which makes a pretty good ground plane. In fact, every time we're coming home from Huntsville, I always use this as a setup. So it worked. Another item worth mentioning here is this coax carrier. When you get it all wrapped up, here I got 100 feet of some coax wrapped up, but when you need to carry that around out to field day and get it to where you need to go, that's a pretty good little tool there. I think I got them from one of the hardware stores around here, so that's a good one. And of course, if you just can't get it to work, there is the final option here. Hi, just kidding. That is to beat that into the ground, of course. So, but it's always at the top of my mind just in case things don't quite work out. And another thing I found that saves me some time is carrying all those antennas and pieces, parts in this bag that you usually get with the masts, like a tent, the mess tent type mast that you see at Hamfest. Used to sell them all the time. So very sturdy bag, and it helps me carry all that stuff in one bag. It's got a little shoulder strap too, and you got to watch out because it'll dig into you on that one, but hey, it does the job. And of course, safety first. Got to have yourself a good pair of working gloves and protection from delusions of grandeur that'll prevent some thoughts of higher cost items and options entering your cranium. And I also recommend the optional cranium cooler for the cap from VE3MIC. But like I said, this will prevent any of those crazy thoughts from entering your brain. So safety first.
Emil, I thought that was dog treats you had brought there.
The dog was present, so it might have been.
Yeah.
I keep my persuader handy too. I use mine for computer work though.
There you go, Mike. When all else fails.
That's right.
I don't know when really, George, to use all of those things though. I know there's something coming up, but I had to share all these cheap tricks that I have for something that might be coming up.
That is actually, there was a lot of good tips to take out in the field with you.
On a certain day.
Yeah. Exactly. That's what I was thinking.
Oh man.
Yeah, that was pretty good stuff. I like the using the ground rod idea. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, it was pretty easy to go in and the end of it's tapered there. I think I got that one from Home Depot. Cut it in half because it's normally a 10 foot.
Yeah.
That was my next question. How long was that? Was that just a 4 foot?
Yeah, that was 4 because I cut the 8 in half from the one, and I used the other half for something else.
Okay, we were thinking that there was 4 foot still in the ground from last year.
No, I just picked that one up.
Well, we got some 4 footers in the ground up around where George is from up there, so
yeah,
it can happen.
Yep. We're going to be back in just a moment because we're all getting ready for field day.
There it is.
Oh, does it?
Every time I hear that sound, I tell you, it makes me want to go to Taco Bell.
Yeah, I want to pet my chihuahua.
David Telling?
Yes.
And he wrote to us on the Facebook group forum that after being licensed for more than 50 years, and most of that not very active, he finally got his 100 political entities, or countries as we call them, He says he doesn't need the certificate to prove it, but it is kind of a nice accomplishment. And probably, if he was more proficient in CW, he mentioned he would have probably gotten way more than that confirmed. But I can relate to him because me and another ham, and that was David, by the way, KJ7WT, and me and another ham recently got our 100, or the DXCC 100 countries or political entities awards recently at the same time. That was kind of weird. His certificate was number 291 and mine was 292. When I posted mine, he posted his.
Wow.
So we could compare, and that was K2 ZAD, Michael, and I'm not even going to say it, Zadaroni. Yeah, sorry, Michael, Mikhail. I'm messing that up. But he did also post, and I can relate, David, because we had I had only been operating casually for quite some time, and it was never really a goal to chase that piece of paper. It's just something that happened when I used Logbook of the World, and I realized, oh wait, I qualify for this mixed award, which is kind of the first step into it. So I can see where people in the hobby eventually get there. They get that first step, and then you get sucked in right to their the paper chasing parts, George. I know I've heard you mention that before. So, but anyway, it's cool stuff when you see what you've been doing all that time, what it adds up to.
Well, I have no awards, like operating awards. I have some awards, but not for the number of contacts made or anything like that. As Mike would say, congratulations to your computer.
It's funny you should say that. Let me show you something, because I just knew this was going to come up. I did an analysis of these contacts, and about 57 of them out of my 100 were data, and 38 were phone, and then 5 were actually CW. And I was thinking, wait, I haven't done CW in a very long time. This was when I was a technician with my ICOM 746 Pro, just starting to learn how to do the programs like FL Digi, CW Skimmer. Like I was typing, basically.
Oh, you're using a CW keyboard.
So I cheated on those for sure, but I just wanted to make sure Mike knew it wasn't all FT8 and digital. And the digital modes were even separated out into RTTY, FT8, PSKs. You remember those days, the PSK 31s and 63s and all of that. So there you go, Mike.
So how many of those modes are you going to work on field day?
wait a minute.
Oh, he caught
Probably,
that right quick.
Probably FT8 for sure. Some Vara, WinLink, no doubt.
Yeah.
I remember a few years ago that FT8 as a mode for FD was a hotly contested argument for many thought that it shouldn't be permitted in FD, but
and now they're counting it as 2 points like CW.
Yeah, one for the computer and one for you, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. I have never even operated FT8.
Really?
I was thinking maybe I'll do some PSK 31 this year, but I might be talking to myself if I did that these days.
Well, at least with PSK 31, much like FT8, if the bands aren't really all that great, you should do okay with those modes.
Yeah. Well, I may have to try to see if my computer is set up. I didn't have this computer last year, so I got to set up everything again.
Oh, your new laptop?
Yeah. I set up the logger and everything. What did we use for logging?
In1MM.
Mickey Mouse.
Yeah. In1MM.
Yeah, I've still got it on there.
Well, we're going to be back in just a moment. Keep your competitive contesting edge and be a Field Day leader with ICOM. Field Day is amateur radio's most popular event and is just around the corner. On June 24th and 25th, more than 40,000 North American hams will come together to operate remotely. ICOM's robust and high-quality transceivers easily cut through pileups so you can work the bands and make those contacts. ICOM is the clear choice for DXers and contesters around the globe. Explore the world of microwave with ICOM's new SHF portable, the IC905. This all-mode rig covers 2 meters, 70 centimeters, 1.2 gigahertz, 2.4 gigahertz, 5.6 gigahertz, and with an optional CX-G10 transverter, 10 gigahertz. This transceiver also has a few industry firsts up its belt. It's the first to support the 5 major global bands from VHF to SHF. The first Power over Ethernet powered RF module designed to be at the base of the antenna to eliminate signal loss, and the first to be compatible with Amateur TV in analog FM mode. Other features include large 4.3-inch color touchscreen, real-time high-speed spectrum scope and waterfall display, easy digital mode settings, supplied high-performance GPS antenna, full D-Star functions for DV and DD mode, and an SD card slot. Aim higher and enter the world of SHF. The ICOM IC7300 is a high-performance, innovative HF transceiver with a compact design that will far exceed your expectations. This innovative HF transceiver digitizes RF before various receiver stages, reducing the generated inherent noise in different IF stages. This is the radio that changed the way entry-level HF is designed. RF direct sampling, 15 discrete bandpass filters, large 4.3-inch color touchscreen, real-time spectrum scope, and SD memory card slot. The real HF fun starts here. Create your own band opening with the IC9700. This radio brings direct sampling to the UHF-VHF weak signal world. The IC9700 is an all-mode transceiver loaded with innovative features that are sure to keep you busy. Expect top performance on field day with ICOM's IC9700. The IC7610 is the SDR every ham wants. This high-performance SDR can pick out faint signals in the presence of stronger adjacent signals. The ICOM 7610 is a direct sampling, software-defined radio that's changed the world's definition of an SDR transceiver. RF direct sampling, 110 dB RMDR, independent dual receiver, and dual digicell. For more information about all the great ICOM radios, visit icomamerica.com/amateur.
I noticed something in that ad. I don't know if did you do something with that campfire? It's animated, and that's the first time I noticed that.
Oh yeah, I did that. I think I did that animation last year. I don't know how many antennas we're going to take this year. Last year, and for a number of field days, I've taken out a mystery antenna, and that's a combination of coax and ladder line and wire and all of this stuff stretched out in some kind of configuration that really doesn't calculate in my head right off. A friend of mine made it for me, and it worked good a few years, but the last time we used it, it wasn't resonant anywhere. Matter of fact, it was far from resonant. Mm-hmm. So I was thinking this year I want to have something a little better to work to the really low bands, like maybe 40 and 80. And I thought, well, might as well build an off-center fed dipole. I've done a lot of those over the years. I've got one for 40 meters right now in the backyard. So I figured I'd build an 80 meter one. And this is it right here. Of course, insulators on either end of it. The wires half wavelength at 80 meters. I didn't mean to hit you in the head there, Mel. And it's cut 2/3 on one side and 1/3 on the other side. And I have a 4-to-1 balun in the middle. This is a balun that I made several years ago and did some videos on. This is a really nice balun here. This is not an El Cheapo. It's
using all the tricks in there that someone else gathered for me and sent me the material. So
Yeah.
that's the best kind right
I
there.
mean,
So I have, really, the only money I got in the balun is the box and the eye hooks that I've got on here. A couple of pieces of hardware, but all the real guts were donated to me to do the video with. And the wire, this is the part I wanted to mention. Emil, this could come back on me, but this is a number 18 gauge lamp cord I bought at Lowe's.
it looks like it ought to be plugged into the wall.
Yeah, I bought 100 feet of it for $7,
Nice.
and then I split it.
That is
So I got
compliant right there.
200 feet. The only thing is, I don't know if it's going to be able to hold up this heavy legal limit balun here. I
didn't know Apple made hooks.
What?
No, they don't.
You said that was eye hooks?
No. These were made before there was an Apple. That term was coined then. It's not an
okay.
eye
It's not-
like an Apple hook.
Okay, it's not an eye hook.
No, it's not that.
Okay, that went right over.
Yeah, it went over everybody's head. Of course, we were talking about field day. So, this is a 4-to-1. I thought I would talk about that some tonight and resurrect an old video, update it a little bit. The video was in 2 parts. So first I built a 1-to-1 balun that I have been using on my 80-meter loop in the backyard here now for almost 10 years. And it's around 8 years. And it's as good now as it was the day I put it up. So the video we're going to look at tonight is when I built the 1-to-1 balun and what you need. Some tips on how to put it together correctly and get a really good high power balun. This is going to be a 1-to-1 balun, and I'll use it to connect my 50 ohm antenna to my 50 ohm transmission line. Let's take a look at the materials that we'll need. We're going to need some tape that's heat resistant, and this glass cloth tape is a good choice. This stuff is kind of like fiber. It's very sticky. You can get this to wrap your toroids and wires with from Amazon Corporation, or you could use something like this Kapton tape here. You can find that on eBay. It's 10 millimeters wide and 33 millimeters long. You could also use something like this plumber's Teflon tape. This stuff is available at your hardware store. It's not very expensive. It'll work good for wrapping the balun with. I'm not so sure about wrapping the wires and holding them together though. Of course, we're going to need some kind of wire to use as the transmission line that wraps around the balun. We're going to use 14 gauge 200 degrees Celsius magnet wire, and you can find this stuff on eBay from a supplier like Timco. We're going to need a toroid, and we're going to use a ferrite 31 mix 2.4 inch toroid, part number 26318038802. And you can find these from commercial suppliers like Krieger, Mauser, or Newark. Now this one has been partially taped. We're going to continue taping it because it's got to be completely covered. This is conductive, and we don't want it shorting out with the wires. We're also going to need some way to house the balun, and I'm going to use this weatherproof electrical box that I picked up at my local Lowe's. This is a Carlin brand. It's not very expensive. It's really a little bigger than we need to hold this size of balun, but I looked around at the price of buying PVC pipe and end caps and all, and since I'm only building a single one here, this was the most economical solution. Plus, it's easy to open up later if I need to get in and do some repair work, and it's waterproof. We'll need a little more hardware to go with the box, so I bought these eye hooks from Lowe's as well. They're stainless steel, and that's what we need for a project like this. We don't want to put something out there that's going to rust and not stand up in the weather. I'm also going to use some 1024 1-inch long bolts. These will be used to feed through so that we can connect the wires of our antenna to. And I bought some wing nuts to put on there so it'll make it kind of easy to attach our wires from the antenna. We'll need a way to attach our coax to the balun, so for that we're going to use an SO239. This will just mount here to the outside of the cabinet. We'll need to seal around it to keep moisture out. And we'll need some screws for that, so I've got some number 632 half-inch stainless steel screws once again here because we don't want this rusting. And naturally I've got the lock washers and nuts to go with that. I want to thank Joe Zaleski, KC8LC, for doing the research and getting all the materials together that we're going to be using here. One thing that he wrote out here I was not aware of is there's a chart. Apparently baluns are more frequency sensitive than I had suspected. If we're going to do a 1.8 to 5 megahertz, we'll want 16 turns of bifiller windings on the number 31 core. For 3.5 to 10 megahertz, we'll want 14 bifiller turns. That's what I'm going to use. Or for 10 to 30 megahertz, we'll want 12 bifiller turns. And you calculate this by taking roughly the number of turns that you're going to need, multiplying that by 2.7 inches, plus about 4 inches for the end connection. So you should have about 37 inches for 14 turns, and that's what we've got here. I've measured it out. Joe had started actually wrapping these to prepare them. We've still got to do some on the end here. But really, before you get into putting the tape on here to wrap these together, what you should do is scrape back about 1 inch of the insulation on all 4 ends of the wires here and tin them. So that's what we'll do now. In order to make this go as quick as it can so that I won't overheat the wire, I'll put a little flux here on it. You'll notice I'm applying the solder to the wire and not directly to the tip of the iron. It's time to move on and prepare the toroid. It's a good idea to write the mix on the toroid in case you ever have to replace it and you want to know what it was. This is a number 31, of course. And Joe had already partially wrapped this one with tape. We're going to finish off the job though. Now it looks to me like Joe cut this tape into strips that were half as wide, and that'll probably make it a little easier when we go to wrap it around the toroid. So I think I'm going to do that too. We want our two wires to be perfectly parallel with each other. No twist in them. And every 1.5 inches, we're going to wrap it with a little piece of the glass tape. I've cut this into 1/4 inch strips now. And now I'm going to mark the ends of one of the wires, and that'll be the one that goes to the center pin of the coax connector. We want to keep these wires as straight and flat as possible. We're going to wind them around the toroid here, and we'll leave about 1.5 inches exposed out the side. We'll need 14 turns like this. Each time you go through the core should be 1 turn. And we don't want to twist the wires as we wrap it. We want to keep them flat and closely spaced. Our end game is to keep the ends of the wire as far apart as possible. And this stuff is a little stiff, so it's going to take a little patience. I'm going to tie wrap this end here, and then I'll continue on with the rest of it. There we go. 14 turns, as tight as I can get them, evenly spaced, and we're relatively as far apart as we can get on the two ends there. Our next step will be to prepare the box. Marked all my holes and we're ready to drill. We'll put the eye hook in the top. We'll put the SO239 in the bottom. And on each side, we're going to put a screw terminal to connect our antenna. First, I'll drill my pilot holes, and then we'll work up to the actual size. Like that size right there, that means that it's kind of tight, so I'll actually have some threads here in the plastic. That's a good tight fit there, so we won't have to worry too much about water leaking around it. Plus, since I've only got one nut that actually fits this eye hook, this will just give me some extra tension to keep it from unscrewing. For the 1024 bolts, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go a little bit tight with it. Well, here it is all assembled. I didn't have time to show the complete assembly here. Just this time around, we showed you mostly winding the toroid here. And we'll be covering more of this in the future because I'm going to build a 4-to-1 balun. But for this particular one, I ended up with the SO239 mounted from the bottom. I decided that once I had screwed a PL259 connector on here, there just wasn't enough room left for me to wrap it good with insulating tape. So I put it on the outside rather than mount it from the inside. I would have rather had it on the inside, but just didn't look like it was going to work out. I've got some washers here. I've made that super tight, and hopefully that will hold it. If it gets hot or that plastic melts, then we're going to have a bad connection there. That's why I really wanted the connector mounted with the flange on the inside. Of course, I've got the other side soldered here to the center pin. Up here on the antenna end, you can see I've put the screws through from the inside. I've got a lock washer under there, and the crimp lug is up under that. I got that super tight as well, and a nut here on the outside that's super tight to hold that together. And then another lock washer, and I got wing nuts out on the end. As long as these crimp terminals here stay tight, we're in good shape. Let's do some testing now with the MFJ259C antenna analyzer. I've got an old terminator here from an old coax network connection. It's 50 ohms. I've got it stuck in a T and just a wire kind of run around the outside here and crammed up in there. So I've got the 50 ohm terminator just as close as I can to the balun itself. Here we're looking at around 2 megahertz. And we can see it's showing 51, 52 ohms, a reactance of 0, a SWR of 1.0. We increase the frequency here. We see it staying pretty steady, 52 ohms, but the reactance and the SWR are not changing. Let's go on up to the next range here. I'm going to be using this on my 80-meter loop, so that's primarily where I'm interested. So 4.6 megahertz, 53 ohms, reactance of 0. As we increase it, it comes up another ohm or so there. We can go up all the way to 10 megahertz, which is what this balun was rated for, and we just start seeing some reactance in 54 ohms. So it's fairly flat across those bands. Might could do a little better with some touch up on it. I'm really not sure as to what's typical for a balun like this, but I think this one's going to do fine. So I'll put the cover on it, and I'm going to put it on my loop as soon as I get a chance. So there you go, a heavy-duty, legal limit 1-to-1 balun.
Yeah, it's a nice project. This not too hard. Doesn't look like it's a difficult project for just about anybody to do. I need a balun. I may end up making one of those 4-to-1s myself.
All right, now that was a 1-to-1.
Right.
So I do have a 4-to-1, which we just saw. We didn't look inside of it. Yeah,
How long did it take you your fingers to recover? Because I did a 4-to-1 balun, and by the time I got all those 14 turns around that toroid with the 14 gauge, even though it was copper, I had sore hands for a couple of days after that, I think.
Well, I don't remember how long it took, but I have a video on the 4-to-1 we'll look at in the future. Let me say it is not 4 times as hard to do as a 1-to-1, but it is more difficult, and the one I built has 2 toroids in it.
Right.
Oh.
But yeah, it's a little more involved than the 1-to-1, but I've been real happy with the 1-to-1. I mean, it really helped out because before, a loop is, well, it's 50 ohm antenna, so you really don't have to have a balun on it, but you get radiation back down your shield on the coax, and it comes into the shack and can do nasty things. And putting that 1-to-1 balun on there really cleaned that up. So, yeah.
Nice.
We're going to be back in just a moment because we've still got more to go, and Tommy's got a new little device here. Emil, he says that it was cheap, comparatively speaking.
We'll see.
So you want to be paying attention to this, but I think it's something that he will be using next week on the air. At the end of each month, it's AmateurLogic's Ham College, the new show for those new to the hobby and those wanting to get into amateur radio.
Which of the following is a purpose of the amateur radio service as stated in the FCC rules and regulations?
That inductor and capacitor form a tuned circuit. That's how you tune the radio to the frequency that you want. The English language.
We lived in town. I liked it. I listened to mine a lot. It was really cool because you didn't have to have a battery to power it.
There's our homemade telegraph station. We can use it for long distance communications. Oh, like 3 feet here?
Across the table. The answer is B. Voltage was named after Italian physicist Alessandro Volta.
We can see we're generating a little bit of electricity there. It's DC.
It's always great to go back and get a refresher.
It sure is.
A lot of that stuff, if you've been a ham for a while like we have, you don't really think about a lot of that stuff that often.
They didn't have electric screwdrivers in those days, so that's why we're not using ones.
That's why we went primitive with it.
Yeah. So let's see if we can hear anything when we fire off our spark gap transmitter.
Oh yeah.
Well, we didn't build anything or blow up anything today, but
the night's still young. I got an email from my friends at the ARRL. It says, "Dear Thomas, N5Z&O." That's what my friends call me.
well, some of us call you Dean Martin.
Some of us.
Yeah.
Your license will be expiring on 9/27 of 2023. This special license expiration notification is one of the many benefits available to current ARRL members. And it goes on how to renew it, and that's all great and good. I didn't realize it was expiring, so I'm thankful for the sending me that. But 2 days later, I got this other one. "Dear Thomas, N5Z&O," they still call me that.
Some people.
"Please be advised that the FCC Universal Licensing System is currently down." So that's actually where I'm kind of leading up with all this. I could read this whole email, but it's not necessary. But I went to the website, and sure enough, it's still down for system maintenance. No estimated time of it coming back up. So if you need to renew or file something, you're going to have to hold off a little bit. I did see a notice that said that they were extending the grace period for expired licenses while it's down. So if yours expired.
We'll go ahead and look at his segment right now.
Okay. Well, field day's almost here. I've got a new auxiliary power unit here that I'm going to try testing out on field day. That's not why I bought it. I've still got my 50 amp LifePro that I made a couple years ago. I used last year at field day. I plan on taking it, but I'm going to give this a run too. This is a Bluetti EB3A. It's 268 watt hours. It's not the biggest one they make, but it was really economical. Some might say it's cheap old man compliant. I think I gave $209 for this, which isn't bad. It's got, again, it's 268 watt hours. It's got 2 coaxial power jacks that are up to 10 amps each. It's got 2 USB-A, which are, I believe, 3 amps each, 5 volts. And it's got a 100 watt USB-C power delivery jack that is actually the reason I bought it. I've got a Mavic 3 Classic that I use, and I've got 3 batteries. Well, I was actually doing a drone job for somebody and ran out of batteries, so I bought this to be able to charge my batteries in the field quickly. So 100 watts will charge my battery up in no time. So I've had it saved my bacon once because I ran out of battery out there. But anyway, it's good to have for emergency power. In addition to those, we've got it's got a power charging pad on the top, so you can lay your phone on top with it on if your phone supports that and charge your phone. I don't really care anything about that. It's also got a charging jack. It's an 8mm charging jack, so you can hook it up to a car charger or solar. It's got 2 AC outlets, and these are pure sine wave, so that's pretty nice to have. I've used it a few times to charge my laptop remotely, and you can turn these on and off independently. The DC output's independent of the AC, so if you turn on the AC, it's obviously, if you don't have anything on there, it's obviously going to run down the battery slowly, but it still drains some because of
providing the AC outlet with some current constantly. To charge it, you can charge it up here. It's got a wall jack that you plug in, kind of the same one that you use on desktop computers. Got 3 charging speeds. It's also got a cigarette lighter outlet if you've got something you want to power from that. That's my least favorite of all of them. It's also got a LED light here for emergency lighting. The thing's pretty nice. You can use an app to control it. Let's turn it on. You'll see it power up. It's only at 33% right now. So let's go ahead and hook the app up to it. It's got Bluetooth, and I've already got it connected. So if you've got mine, I've got mine called EB3A M5ZNO. Touch it and it connects to it, no problem. Shows the current status. From the app, you can turn on the DC right here, and you can see it powers on here as well. So we can turn it back off. Turn on the AC. I heard it click. And turn that back off. I load tested this a couple nights ago, just save some time on my video here. And I hooked up this coaxial connector with 2 wires on it, and I hooked the alligator clips to my load tester that you've seen me use before. And my output actually got a little over 17 amp hours, or 232 watt hours of the 268 rated. So I didn't think that was too bad. So basically, essentially 17 amp hour DC power source. So that ought to power my 705 a long time. Anyway, I don't know how much I'll use it. I'm concerned with this charging pad up here causing some noise on the HF band. So we'll see how that goes on field day. I'll report back on it. This app's pretty nice. You can go into the settings, update the firmware. You can tell it when to shut down on the economy. So eco's on. You can see it right here. What that means is if it's not used for whatever time period it's here, it'll turn itself off to save from running down the battery with its own self-discharging. It's got an LED light. You can turn on and off here. So this, I'll just put it on. Well, it's got medium, high, and SOS. So that's medium. And let's turn that back off. You can also turn it on and off from the buttons on the front. Oh, cycles through. Charging mode, it's on silent. I got it on silent, that's the slowest one. That charges at about 100 watts. And it's good, the best for the life of your battery. Turbo charges a little faster. And then there's a fast charge that they don't recommend doing except for an emergency, and that'll charge it in probably less than an hour. But it also causes a lot of heat on your batteries and it reduces the life of them. So I've got mine on silent. With the other modes, the fan runs. That's probably my biggest complaint on it, is the fan's pretty noisy, as you can hear right here. It's when it starts up, it sounds like a transformer buzz or something, and then the fan eventually ramps up. But it's not that bad. It's okay. It is kind of bad. But it's not bad enough to not buy the unit for the price, in my opinion. By default, this thing will output 300 watts. There's a power lifting mode on here that you can see, and with that on, it'll actually output 600 watts. But it reduces the voltage. So some devices will handle that and some it won't. So make sure that you're careful about that. What you hook up to the unit on that mode, because you don't want to damage it because of low voltage. I haven't used that yet, and I probably don't really intend to. And again, we got firmware update here, and I haven't seen any firmware updates yet since I've had it. And the app will actually turn the unit off too. So after you do that, you can't connect back to it with this until you touch something, turn it back on. The 2 complaints I've got on it are the noise from the fan, and that this light goes off pretty quickly. The display turns off pretty quickly, I guess to save power. But it would be really nice if it was an adjustable setting to adjust the time. I understand it going off, But every time I try to video something, I have to run over here and touch the button to turn it back on. But I guess that's when the app comes in handy as well. So we can hook this up with to solar to charge it. I've got my 60-watt solar panel, my power film solar. Let's take it outside and give it a try. Hook it up to the solar panel and see what we can get out of it. It has a charge controller built in, so I don't have to worry about that. I've got a charge controller for my solar panel, but it's not for LifePro batteries. So anyway, there's one built in here like I mentioned. And I'm going to hook up my power film solar 60-watt canvas solar panel and see what we can do with it. So let me go ahead and set this up. I don't have a cable to go straight into this 8mm. Let's go ahead and turn it on, although I don't think you really have to. But I do have the cigarette lighter adapter with these funny connectors on them. I haven't been able to find these. If you know where I can get them, let me know. But I'm going to hook this up to the solar panel, and then I've got the cigarette lighter adapter to charge this unit from the car. I'm going to hook it up into the female socket on the car adapter. So, but that'll work. It's not the best hookup, but it'll work and get me by till I can do something different. This plug will go straight in here if I'm lucky. I'm going to try to get it as much in the sun as I can. Well, it's in the sun, pretty much full sun, although it's not. There's some tiny little clouds up there, and you'll see it going up and down. But I've got 52 watts coming out of the solar panel into here. This is definitely charging. Do the math, and that's how long it would take to charge it. But it's a pretty nice unit. I'm going to use it at field day and give it a try, see how it does. Again, I'll take my 50 amp. It is cheap old man compliant, and it's pretty handy. Like I said, it saved me a few times. If the power goes off, you can run your CPAP on it if you have one, or a light, or TV. I saw where one guy ran his refrigerator. I imagine it's one of the newer refrigerators, so it doesn't pull quite as much current, but ran his refrigerator all night on it, which I thought was kind of amazing. So anyway, hope you found it useful. Pretty neat little device, and you'll probably see more of it on the show at some point. 73.
You had me at bacon.
Yeah. You caught that, huh?
Yeah.
I did have a question though. What's the power lifting function do?
It's supposed to. It can deliver you up to 300 watts, but if you turn on the power lifting, you can get 600 watts out of it, but it actually reduces the voltage.
Oh.
So some stuff it's okay for, some stuff it's not going to be so good for. So I don't turn it on. I don't. I just act like it's not even there.
I don't know, Emil. What do you think? Compliant?
I'm thinking,
Well, I
law.
Yeah. Well, was it compliant? I used the logo, so.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking about those before I bought my lithium iron phosphate battery. I was looking at those Bluettis, and I almost pulled the trigger on that instead of the battery. So I'll probably wind up with one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was $209, and I didn't think it was too bad. And like I said, I had another use for it, but I figure I can get some ham use out of it too. So
They really thought of everything on that box.
yeah, they could have left out the inductive charging on the top of it though.
Yeah. We were just talking about that. You ought to do that, measure it, and see what's.
But the QI charging pad, you mean, on top?
Yeah.
What frequency?
If you don't put anything on it, like, I think it's smart enough to know, like, it's not always energized, I don't think.
When you
It's
turn
like-
on the DC output, it you can then lay your phone on there and it works.
Right,
Well, I don't
but I
know
don't
if
think
it's-
it actually does anything until it sees a device that needs charging. I could be wrong on that, but
Well,
I
that'd
think
be
they're
nice.
intelligent enough that they don't really do anything unless it sees a device on it.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting to check that out, though.
Yeah, Tom's asking, WA2IVD's asking, any idea how much it reduces the voltage? And I guess I should have measured that. I'll have to do some more tests with it and report back on that later.
Yeah, that's kind of curious to me. you can double the wattage, but it decreases the voltage.
That's what it
So-
says.
It increases the current. It would have to if it's going to double the wattage.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. I don't know.
Wow.
That's some kind of strange magic there. But the thing should be handy next weekend for field day. Oh, we got two notes, not even harmonically related
Oh,
there.
wow.
That was a C and a D.
Oh,
Emil,
okay.
Emil, you do know that every time you ring a bell, an angel gets his wings, right?
Yeah, in fact, I think Joe is about to fly off in the chat room. I think he's taking a swig of Kentucky every time.
Oh, yeah. Well, I just myself here happened to have an email tonight,
A real email?
a real email. This came from an actual viewer. It's from Matt, KD8GWK. Now this is power related, Tommy, so this is kind of maybe up your alley here. He said that he saw a video of a person that took 32 CDs and DVDs and drilled 2 holes 1/8 inch apart. Then he cut 32 pieces of .65 millimeter copper wire, 46 inches long, and wrapped all of the CDs and DVDs. Then he set them on a frame and connected the copper ends in parallel, leaving 2 wires free to connect to a wire that will be connected to a battery or something. Then he mixed up some resin and poured over the CDs and DVDs, let it set for 12 hours. Then he took a voltmeter to show that it would produce 220 volts. And now Matt's question is, will this run an HF radio for field day? And if so, how long will it keep the radio battery going, granted we have decent sunny weather? And that one slipped right past Emil right there. When I said the magic words. But I had to go look. First I answered him before I even looked, and I said, I haven't heard of anyone making solar panels from optical disc. Sounds to me like a hoax to get some views or something. My $100 solar panel can't put out anywhere near 220 volts. So no, I don't think you can make solar panels out of CDs and DVDs. This is a picture of, I believe this is the one he was talking about. Turns out when I did a search, there was a heap of folks doing videos of this on YouTube and getting a bunch of views, but it's snake oil.
They look like thermocouples, more so than a solar panel.
Well, it's CDs and DVDs with holes drilled in them and wires wrapped around them. Do the math. I don't see it putting out 220 volts. I don't see it putting out anything. But anyhow, I wrote him back, and told him what I said there. He agreed, yeah, he didn't really think it would work either. But I appreciate you sending that, Matt, because...
And he found that on, I missed a little bit of that. Found that on a video?
Yeah, if you do a search on YouTube, 3 or 4 or 5 different videos will come up with people doing that. And, not necessarily, I don't know that everything you see on YouTube you want to believe.
Oh, no.
As a matter of fact, it would be like this tube that I have right here. Now, this shirt came from VE3 MIC, but is not one off the VE3 MIC Mr. and Mrs. Press.
Wait a minute, this side.
Yes. Now, unlike that,
Yeah.
this one was a commercial purchase, I think, that you did here.
That's right, yeah.
And this is of a 4CX 15,000A tube, and that's what my FM transmitters use. Well, 2 of them do. One of them's 11 kilowatt transmitter, the other one's 25 kilowatts. The other FM transmitter is 35 kilowatts, but it uses a YC130, which is the same tube physically on the outside with different guts. But the thing that throws it off here, and you would see this on a YouTube video, if you look at the bottom here, there's pins coming out of the bottom of the tube.
Mm-hmm.
There are no pins coming out the bottom of a 4CX 15000A. It's a ceramic tube, and there's metal rings around it that are the contacts.
So you're saying you can't believe everything on a T-shirt either?
I'm saying you can't believe everything on a
What the
T-shirt
man?
either.
What in the heck is going on these
Yep.
days?
Between T-shirts and YouTube,
Your whole life is a farce.
it is, pretty much.
So what you're saying is that 4CX 15000A actually has slip rings rather than pins?
Yes.
Really? Wow.
Oh, you didn't design this. I mean, this was a design you found, right? Or did you design it?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, you insert the blank. Actually, I could have put your call sign there.
Yeah, I was going to
just
say,
as well,
because
but
Ted
I
Randall
thought that
and
was kind of neat.
Ted Randall and his family, you probably noticed at Hamvention this year, they all had similar shirts to this that had their call signs on them.
Yeah, I did notice that, but you know what? I missed Ted. Every time I went by his booth, he wasn't there for some reason.
I never saw him in the booth, but I saw him outside a couple of different times. But every time I
Okay.
went by, yeah, he was out roaming around, so we really didn't get to chat a whole lot. Although he did try to run me down in his hoverbout, or he threatened to anyway. But after I stood there and yelled,
Watch out!
No.
well, that's it for tonight's show. That's everything we brought to the table in preparation for next weekend's big event that we're all looking forward to. That for some reason we won't be able to mention at the moment, but hey, we could. I know we'll be talking all about it next month, and email will have to leave the bell at home. Wait a minute, the bell
He
is
is
at
at
home.
home.
Yeah, okay. Well, that won't really work out with it, will it? Speaking of stuff on the air, tell us about the Logic Net.
Well, it's kind of a spin-off of the Amateur Logic Soundcheck Net. We kind of put that one to bed after the COVID pandemic ended, and Tom was nice enough to get this one started. Logic Net, it's got a similar format, not exactly, but it's a lot of fun. It happens the Tuesday night after the Amateur Logic live stream, which will be this coming Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Central Time or 0100 UTC. And looks like we got pretty much all the old connections that we had on the Soundcheck Net.
Yeah, that's going to be Tuesday, June the 20th of 2023.
That's June the 20th for you and me.
Yep.
It's Tom says it's him and Marty this time.
Okay.
The
All right.
18.
Look on the air during next weekend's event for W5AXC, Alpha X-Ray Charlie. Think they'll be able to pick that one out?
I hope so.
Alpha X-Ray Charlie. Maybe.
Whiskey 5 Alpha X-Ray Charlie.
Yeah. That kind of rolls off the tongue.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
Is that a hat in his mouth?
No, it's
Is
a
that
blanket.
Kaiser?
This is the
Yeah.
female. No, this is Anna.
Okay.
Got a
So
blanket.
for field day, we'll be operating as W5AXC.
Ha! Ha ha ha!
knew it.
You thought you got me with the dog.
That was not a Chihuahua.
No, that's the biggest chihuahua I've ever seen.
All right. You know, you might want a bucket head hat to wear for field day. Where could you find such things as that, Emil?
At shop.spreadshirt.com/amateurlogic, you can find all the bucket hats you want. And remember, safety first for field day, because you got to keep those expensive thoughts out of your head. And that bucket hat's really good at keeping that expensive thought out of your head.
It gets pretty hot on field day, too, so it also keeps the rays from baking your noodle up there.
Yep. And I really hate that I didn't get footage of it because I didn't really see it in action. I did see it sitting on the dashboard, though. Mike brought the cranial cooler with him to Hamvention this year.
Did you? Awesome.
He did.
You wear
I
it?
actually wore it, and actually, Joe Eisenberg, what is it, K0NEB?
Uh-huh.
He saw me wearing the AmateurLogic cranial cooler.
7-3, everyone. Hope to catch you some of you on the air.
7-3.
7-3.
7-3.
Is that Putin up there poking Mike in the ear?
No, that's dude from Back to the Future.
Oh.
The teacher. You're a slacker,
Yeah.
McFly.
Mr. Strickland.
So I got an email from my good friends at the ARRL. Dear Thomas, N5ZNO, that's what my friends call me. Your license will be expiring on 9/7 of 2023. As soon as this weather alert goes off.